I had some experiences that, as I look back as a child, I knew, as I look back now, I can say that those were God's hand on me when I was young. I bought that little book, To Know God Better, when I was 20, and it took 10 years before I met somebody that could talk about that. And then I was invited by a nun that I knew to the Cenacle, and that's where I, had my Holy Spirit experience, and 2, started going on silent retreats. But it was another 10 years of going on retreat and having spiritual direction out there that I was president of our women's group and wanted to do that kind of a retreat for our women. And we just couldn't find anybody that knew how to do that. So then one of the women on our board said, when she was praying, she felt like God said I was supposed to do the retreat. And we did 4 retreats the first year and then 8 from September to May. The retreat started first, and those of us that were planning and doing the retreats would meet every week just to pray and talk. And we were learning together, really, and wanting, deeper contemplative, and we wouldn't have used that language at all. We just wanted to pray and to experience God in a deeper way. We were meeting in this one woman's apartment. It was going to be painted, so we moved over and asked the church if we could meet in the fireside room. And we did, and we were there for years. And by the time we incorporated in 1985, now that was less than 10 years, we had our first consecration, and I think we must have had 35, 40 people that made a consecration to live a life of contemplative prayer on behalf of the church and the world, and do it in society and not cloistered, and also so that people could know the love relationship with God. And of course, we did it by doing silent retreats. It's amazing to me how when you're silent, that it's so much more full than it is when you're talking. Yeah. God meets you in that silence. It was always about helping people pray. And when we built the building, it was to have a place for the ministry, and we called it Prayer Center. Okay. But then we got the calls, that pray for this, pray for this, pray for this. It was sort of like the prayer tower, remember the days?
Yes.
And then we decided that we would change the name from Praise of His Glory to Christos Center. And then I said I would be director of the center. So the whole thing, from the beginning, was about prayer. And spiritual direction was oh, by the way, after I did the Shalem program, I think actually between first and second year, I was gathering material and gathered women that were doing prayer ministry and asked them if they wanted to enhance their prayer ministry skills. And we had more of a discussion group using the books and materials. And then after I finished my program, then we put together the units, and then we started doing the 2 years. And of course, at the church we were at had this lay ministry training center, and the pastor that was in charge of that asked if his second-year people could take that program if they wanted to, And so we had those ministry students coming in, taking the program too. So we had, by the time we built the building, we had done it probably 5 times. I think the ideology behind all of it was, as you engage in this material, what is happening to you inside?
Yes.
So, whether you were reading about this or that skill or whatever, when you engage that material, what is happening to you inside? It was always about how is that deepening your prayer? How is that deepening your life? How are you, deepening your love relationship with God as you engage this material?
Yes.
It was always about that. everything. But of course, I always had this spiritual, journey and going on, and I went down to Central Lutheran and sat up in the balcony when it was a full church, because I was hungry. And and I always felt like I was trying to learn how to pray with a big sack over my head, because nobody could tell me until I started going to the silent retreats. But it was always one step. People say it must be gratifying to see your vision unfold. I never really had a vision.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about doing anything like this.
You just took one step.
One step at a time.
And you saw the next step.
And saw the next step. And stuff happened. I mean, you used to read, we used to read about things like this, but we had days where we were told they're going to turn off the phone. They're not going to bring gas anymore. Because we, didn't have any money. And we always made it. Something always, And I know that when we were trying to raise money to build the building, the board was, we can't take that on, we can't, how can we? And I said, first, I felt like God was saying this is what we should do. But finally I said, we need to decide that, what are we going to do? What is God inviting us to do? And then move forward. We can't just sit. When they wanted to wait until we had some money, But I said that can't be the determining factor. It has to be, what does God say? Well, then one lady gave us $10,000. She didn't even come to anything. I don't know why she did, but that was. And then they did bake sales, garage sales, all these things, and we made enough money to make a down payment. And of course, we had a banker that gave us a very good, we should never have gotten a loan, but we did. But we needed a building. We wanted to put something on here, and I wanted to put a little prefab or a used house that they sit over at Hugo, you could, and the city planner wouldn't let us do that. And one day he said, Joann, why don't you build your own building? And I started to cry. I'm talking to the city planner, because I knew that was it. So then we were going to do, the prefab that you can buy, and one of the guys from our church, who was a construction guy, he said, we can buy our own lumber. You don't need to get theirs. And then one day we had a mailbox. I took a picture of that we had a mailbox out here. And one day I opened that, and it had an envelope with the architectural drawings for the building. And it was a guy at church, of course, that knew, but he didn't have any connection to us whatsoever, except he knew who we were.
Wow.
And stuff that, those little miracles.
That's exactly what we wanted to hear about, Joann, is where did God show up and just delight you?
Well, it was one thing after another. I can't say that there weren't hardships. And I wrote a poem about it, and it's called My Joy and My Pain Are the Same. Because everything that you go through, if you're paying attention, has benefit to your spiritual growth and your growth as a human being. And there were plenty of hard times, and times when you wonder, why am I doing this? And Teresa of Avila says it so well. If this is how you treat your friends, no wonder you have so few. Silence. I do read a fair amount, a lot of heavy-duty literature and mysteries. I would bless this ministry. I am grateful that it was my place of spiritual growth for me as a person. It was a gift to be able to be a part of what God was doing here. And I pray that for every person that takes part in this ministry, it will be a gift to them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Joann.
very much.
Yeah.